Think of time as something valuable like capital. Just as you wouldn't want someone to take your money or seed corn, you also shouldn't let anyone waste your time. Time is precious, and it's important to protect it just like you would protect your capital. Now, when should you begin your day? Remember this advice about managing your time. As soon as you have it finished, take some time to plan your day well, allowing for flexibility for unexpected events and tasks that pop up. But once you've crafted a solid plan for a productive day, it's time to jumpstart that day into action. You'll be amazed at how much more effective your time becomes. So don't start your day until you have it finished. Now on to the next tip. Don't start your week until you've got it all sorted out. Planning out an entire week can be quite a challenge, but it's worth it. Next, don't start the month until you have it finished. Consider the places you need to visit, the individuals you intend to meet, the goals you aim to achieve, whether it's enhancing productivity, increasing sales, attracting customers, fostering development, or any other objectives you have set for yourself to accomplish within the span of 30 days. Moreover, here's a significant point to ponder. Hold off on starting the year until you've laid out your plans for it in detail. While it may not be feasible to plan every minute, ensure you have a clear overview of what you aspire to achieve throughout the year. Take the time to set your goals and aspirations for the entire year. Make sure that that's set and ready to go. But sometimes, by the time January 1st rolls around, things might not go as planned. You might feel frustrated or disappointed because your initial plans might not work out. But don't worry, you can start over and make new plans. Sometimes, you might even make a lot of progress in the first 90 days of the year, and it feels like you've accomplished double or triple what you expected. This happened to me once. I started the year with certain expectations, but by the end of the third month, I was feeling really positive. So many things were happening that I had to revise my plans for the entire year. It's amazing how things can change for the better when you start planning. Now let me share Bill Bailey's thoughts on time with you. Life is a collection of experiences, their frequency and their intensity. Life is not just the passing of time. Life is not just watching the clock tick away. Life is about the richness of our experiences, how often we feel deeply and how intense those feelings are. Life is about living fully and embracing each moment with intensity and frequency. My father lived for 93 years, which might sound like a long time, but it felt short. Even though he lived to the age of 93, it still felt short because we always wish we had more time with our loved ones. In ancient times, according to stories in the Old Testament, some people lived for hundreds of years, like 500, 600, 700, even 800 or 900 years. If I had the chance, I'd ask, how come we got shortchanged? It's an interesting question, don't you think? Just imagine having 700, 800, or 900 years to see your family grow and thrive through generation after generation. Now, you got to be healthy to make it to 900. So, no matter how long or short your life may turn out to be, it's important to focus on filling it with meaningful experiences and making those experiences intense and fulfilling. Now, let me share some tips on managing your time effectively. The first tip might sound surprising. Ignore the whole idea of time management. Yes, you heard that right. Sometimes it's okay to let go of worrying too much about time. You don't have to stress over managing every minute of your day. If you feel overwhelmed by the idea of controlling your time, remember that. You have the choice to let go of that pressure. You don't have to feel obligated to micromanage every aspect of your time if it doesn't serve you well. Now here's the next one. Sometimes it's better to take a step back and do something simpler. For instance, imagine a person who works in sales. They might have big dreams of owning their own company someday. Finally, they achieve that dream and become the boss. But then they realize they hardly have any time for activities they used to enjoy, like playing golf. They remember how back when they were just in sales, they could make good money and still have time to play golf 3 days a week. So they decide to make a change. They realize that managing a company is too demanding, and they miss having control over their own schedule. That's when they decide to go back to their old job in sales. You see, the important thing is to recognize when things are becoming too overwhelming. If you find yourself feeling too stressed, you might consider stepping down to something with a little easier time pressure. Remember when I said some things I went for cost me too much? So reconsider stepping down to something easier. Now here's the next important thing. When you're working on a project, it's like being in a race. Either you're leading the way or the project is taking control and leading you. What I've learned is that when you start something new, you're in charge. You're in control of how things unfold. But as time goes by, especially after a year or so, the project starts to take control. It's like the tables have turned. Some of the companies I've started began with me firmly in charge. But after a couple of years, I found myself losing control. What started as me having the project under control turned into the project controlling me. Suddenly, I didn't have enough time to keep up with everything. I'm dizzy with trying to get it all done. Here's a key point to remember. It's crucial to take control of your life. Decide to be the one in charge. For example, you can say, I'm going to be responsible for my health. I'm going to manage my time wisely. It's up to me to take care of my health. Society doesn't demand it, but I do. You have to recognize that it's your personal responsibility to prioritize your well-being and that of your loved ones. It's not society's job to ensure you stay healthy or secure financially. You have to set those standards for yourself. So make a commitment to self-improvement by taking charge of your life, your health, your finances, and your obligations. Society doesn't dictate that you build an impenetrable financial wall around your family. Nothing can get through. That's not a requirement of society. You must demand that from yourself. Next key to time management is the idea of working longer and harder. However, it's essential to recognize that there's a limit to how much you can push yourself. I learned this lesson the hard way, when I almost sacrificed my health. During the first year of relentlessly pursuing personal development and success, I became so obsessed with achievement that I neglected my well-being, and by the end of that year, I was a walking shadow. It was a wake-up call, when I realized the irony of potentially becoming wealthy but too sick to enjoy it. That realization prompted me to adopt a more balanced approach to my endeavors. I used to think that if working 12 hours a day wasn't enough, I would push myself to work 14 or even 18 hours. However, I soon discovered that this mindset came at a significant cost. While working longer and harder might be suitable for some situations, but it's crucial to acknowledge your limits. Sure, if you find yourself with ample time and little productivity, putting in extra hours could be beneficial. But there's only so much you can physically and mentally handle. That's why the real key isn't necessarily working harder, but working smarter. It's about optimizing your efforts, maximizing efficiency, and achieving the best possible results within a reasonable time frame. Next point in time management. It's crucial to understand that giving yourself a reasonable amount of time is actually enough to achieve your goals. Make sure to remember this. You see, I had to learn this lesson myself. Reasonable time is all you need. Here is why. It's not the hours you put in. It's what you put in the hours. If you focus on putting great ideas and effort into the time you have, especially if you do this consistently over time, you'll be amazed at how productive you become later on. The key is to think beyond the immediate moment. Instead of just considering what needs to be done right now, think about how your efforts today will pay off in the future. When you invest your time and energy into quality ideas and actions, the productivity you experience will skyrocket. It's like planting seeds that will grow and flourish over time. Your productivity multiplies by 2, 3, 5. Here's the next one. Regularly review your goals. Take some time to go over your goals and ensure that your list is still motivating you and keeping you excited. If someone asked you why you're up so early, you can tell them. If you were going to meet who I'm going to meet, you'd be up early. If you were headed where I'm headed, you'd be up early too. It's all about setting yourself up for success and making sure that you're ready to take on whatever challenges or opportunities come your way. Next one in time management. One important skill to develop is the ability to distinguish between what we call majors and minors. When you answer the phone, ask yourself, is this conversation about something major or minor? If it's minor, you can exchange a few pleasantries and then move on. But if it's major, you might need to take some notes to remember the important points discussed. Now, on to the next tip. When you're about to have an important conversation, take a moment to create an agenda beforehand. It's easy to just talk out of your head, but that can lead to confusion and inefficiency. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone couldn't remember what they wanted to discuss? It can make you look unprepared and unsure. By creating an agenda before the call, you'll have a clear outline of the topics you need to cover. This can be incredibly helpful, especially later on when you need to recall what was discussed. For example, let's say you call Peter from the sales department and mention 4 specific things during the conversation. Later, if Peter claims that you didn't talk about those topics, you can refer back to your agenda to jog his memory. This way, you have evidence of what was discussed, which can be especially important when dealing with salespeople who might try to convince you otherwise. Remember, if you don't have some form of documentation, important details can easily slip through the cracks. So always make an agenda before making a call to ensure clarity and productivity. Now, what's major? What's minor? Here's the key. Don't major in minor things. If you focus too much on minor tasks, you'll always be playing catch up. In sales training, they teach us about major and minor tasks. Minor tasks include things like making lists, keeping records, visiting potential customers, and evaluating how things went after visiting a customer. These tasks might seem important, but they're actually minor because they don't directly involve interacting with the customer. Here's major time in the presence of the prospect. That's major time. That's when you're in the presence of the customer. And it's the most important time for a salesperson. If you look at your week as a salesperson, you might realize that you're spending most of your time on minor tasks and very little time actually interacting with customers. So it's essential to evaluate how much time you're spending in the presence of customers each day or week. That's the time that really counts and has the most significant impact on your success in sales. Next, here's another important aspect in time management: knowing when to say no. In today's society, where being social is highly valued, it's easy to fall into the trap of saying yes to everything. But saying yes too often can lead to feeling overwhelmed with responsibilities. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you said yes to something too quickly, only to realize later that you're overloaded with tasks? Then you have to spend even more time trying to back out of commitments you shouldn't have made in the first place. It's a hassle, isn't it? Instead of saying an immediate yes, it might be better to respond with something like, "I don't think I can do that right now, but if anything changes, I'll let you know." This way, you're not committing yourself right away, and you give yourself some time to consider whether you can realistically take on the task. One of my friends said, "Don't let your mouth overload your back." It's a reminder to be mindful of how much you agree to take on, so you don't end up burdening yourself with more than you can handle. Next, this is a big one: concentration. I learned this lesson many years ago through a memorable experience. I was in the shower trying to compose a letter in my head. However, I found that the letter turned out quite strange because my mind was wandering. So here's what I learned to do: save your work for when you're actually at your desk in the office. Don't try to tackle work tasks while you're on your way to work. Instead, focus on enjoying the journey to work. For example, if you're in the shower, fully immerse yourself in the experience of taking a shower. Then, when you arrive at the office, you can concentrate better, because you're not trying to multitask or split your focus between different activities. I found that practicing concentration is incredibly helpful once you're at work. It allows you to give your full attention to the task at hand, which ultimately leads to greater productivity and better results. Here's the next one: when you play, play. When you work, work. Don't mix the two. I learned this lesson the hard way. There was a time when I used to take my family to the beach, but I would bring my briefcase along, thinking I could get some work done while we were there. However, I quickly realized that this wasn't a good idea. Instead of enjoying our family time together, I was preoccupied with thoughts about work. I'm thinking office. And my family could sense my distraction, which affected their enjoyment too. Similarly, when I was at the office, I would often find myself daydreaming about being at the beach with my family. As a result, my productivity suffered because I wasn't fully focused on my work. So I learned to be more present in each moment. At the beach, be at the beach and enjoying the time with my family. And when I'm at the office, I concentrate on my work, without letting thoughts of leisure activities distract me. By separating work and play and giving each its dedicated time and attention, I've found that I can be more productive and enjoy my leisure time more fully. So when you work, work. When you play, play. Don't mix the two. Don't work at play. Here's a really important tip: don't play at work. Work is a serious business. You don't want people thinking of you as the office clown. That's not a good reputation to have. Sure, there's time for a few funny stories and some laughter, It's great to have a happy atmosphere in the office, but you have to remember that work is a serious business. When you're working, you're giving up a part of your life. This is what they call serious business. It doesn't mean you have to be grim or unhappy all the time, but it does mean you need to take your work seriously. Making jokes and playing tricks might be fun in some places, but not at work. It's important to understand that the workplace isn't the right setting for that kind of behavior. You can do those things at places like the beach or a bar, where it's more appropriate. But when you're at work, you need to take things seriously. You've got to approach work with a sense of responsibility and dedication, because it's what's shaping your future. So instead of goofing off, it's crucial to treat your work with the seriousness it deserves. By doing so, you'll set yourself up for success and make the most of the opportunities that come your way. Here's another important thing to remember. Every job is valuable. Even if you don't particularly enjoy your job, if it's helping you move closer to your goals, you should still appreciate it. You don't necessarily have to love your job. What's most important is having a strong desire for incredible success in all aspects of your life. That's the real passion you should strive for. Don't underestimate the importance of any job, no matter how small or seemingly unimportant it may seem. Every job plays a part in your journey towards where you want to be. No job is menial and no job is without dignity. When you work, you're not just trading your time for money. You're also making a contribution to society and gaining valuable experience along the way. So instead of looking down on any job, recognize the value it holds in shaping your future and appreciate the opportunity it provides for growth and development. Now, here's the next key for managing your time. Don't mistake movement for achievement. It's common to feel like you've accomplished a lot just because you've been busy all day. For example, someone might come home in the evening feeling exhausted and say, "I've been busy all day long." But the important question to ask is, busy doing what? It's not enough to just keep moving from one task to another. Some people might seem like they're constantly busy, but they're not actually making much progress. It's like running around in circles. You're moving, but you're not really getting anywhere. It's essential not to mistake busyness for achievement. Instead of focusing solely on staying busy, focus on accomplishing meaningful tasks that move you closer to your goals. That way, you'll ensure that your efforts are leading to real progress and not just keeping you occupied. Here's the next in time management. Be cautious of the telephone and other communication systems. It's crucial to understand how these systems can affect our personal time, especially during weekends or family dinners. Here's a valuable tip for the weekend. Let communication systems serve you, but don't let them intrude. When it's time to have dinner with your family, make sure to turn off any communication devices that might disturb the peace. It's essential to create boundaries and protect your personal space from outside intrusions, whether it's through the front door, back door, telephone, or any other device. Nothing should interrupt your family time. This applies to everyone, including parents. So don't let these convenient devices constantly intrude into your personal time. It's important to have a place that's respected and free from external interruptions, even if it's just for a short period. Here's the next one. Read as many books as you can in time management. While I only have a few notes on time management here, there are plenty of books out there that can help you with specific challenges, especially if you're running a large organization or corporation. Next, pay attention to anything that might be taking away your time. It's important to remember that time is valuable, just like money. You wouldn't let someone steal your savings or investment, right? Similarly, you shouldn't allow anyone to steal your time. You need to be deliberate about how you allocate your time. And there's certain serious time that you simply can't afford to let anyone interrupt. It's okay to let people interrupt during less important or casual moments. But when it comes to serious tasks or designated time for important activities, you need to protect that time and not allow anyone to steal it away from you. Here is the next one in time management. Learn to ask questions right from the start. Sometimes you might spend a lot of time talking to someone, only to realize later that if you had asked the right questions up front, you could have saved yourself a lot of time. Asking questions early on helps you to quickly identify the core issue. For example, let's say you spend an hour discussing something with Peter, only to realize afterward that the real issue is something personal. If you had asked the right questions at the beginning, you could have focused on addressing the main problem right away. Launching into a discussion without asking questions up front can lead to wasting time. Instead, make it a habit to ask questions early on to ensure that you're addressing the most important issues from the start. This way you can avoid spending unnecessary time on topics that aren't relevant to the core problem. Next tip, analyze how you are. Take a good look at yourself and identify any weaknesses you may have. If it seems like you're unable to change those weaknesses, here's what you should do. Find a way to compensate for them. In early days of my business, I used to keep telling myself that I would handle the bookkeeping for my business, but I never seemed to get around to it. Eventually, I realized that this wasn't something I was good at, and it was taking up a lot of my time and energy. So instead of trying to force myself to do something I wasn't skilled at, I decided to hire an accountant to handle the books for me. Yes, it cost me an extra $40 or $50 a month, but the time and productivity I gained back were well worth it. The lesson here is that sometimes it's okay to accept yourself as you are, weaknesses and all, but if there are areas where you struggle, don't hesitate to find a solution to cover for them. It might cost you a little extra money or effort, but in the long run, it can save you a lot of time and stress. Here's the ultimate strategy for managing your time. Become more skilled at what you do. When I first got into sales, I was surrounded by colleagues who had impressive success rates, like getting 9 out of 10 sales while I could only manage 1 out of 10 at the beginning. So, what did I do to compensate for my lack of skill? I worked tirelessly around the clock to make up for it with sheer numbers. This is an important lesson in sales. When you're new to something, you can make up for your lack of skill by increasing your efforts and reaching out to more people. It's all about quantity over quality in the beginning stages. As you become more skilled and experienced, your success rate will naturally improve. And you won't need to put in as much effort to achieve the same results. Your ability to persuade and influence others will be much higher, allowing you to be more selective with your efforts. However, to reach that level of skill and competence, you need to put in the hard work and dedication, especially in the initial stages. Once you've developed yourself and become more proficient, managing your time effectively becomes much easier because you're able to achieve more with less effort.